All right, everyone, welcome to another week of Strategy, Solutions, and Sanity. On this show, we just get into how business can be messy and vulnerable. And who else to do that than the infamous Jesse Hernandez? Hey, Jesse.
Hello, what's going on? I hope my energy is not too over the top, but I'm hyped. I'm ready.
No, bring the piñatas, bring the confetti. Jesse, you've actually been name dropped in a few different lives. You just come up in different ways. And I think that's also because you're kind of everywhere, like,
Yeah.
that's your whole MO. So for the people that are watching that don't know who you are, give us a quick little background, insight into the journey of Jesse.
Oh my goodness. Okay, super quick background. I started my career in the construction industry back in the 1900s. Started off right out of high school, 1995, as an apprentice. My dad's a plumber. It was supposed to be a summer job. Turned out, I got on the job site and said, oh my God, this is amazing. It's Disneyland. This is where I belong. So I went down the route, apprenticeship, foreman, journeyman, foreman, superintendent. I played a lot of roles in the industry on the subcontractor side of the business. And then I ended up going to the general con, went to the dark side. Shout out to the...
Yep. Y'all see that I nerded out. I got Hawaiian shirts because it's Jesse. Anyway, okay, you're on the dark side now.
Yep. So went to work for a GC. I was there for about 3.5 years. I had regional responsibility, which is a gigantic leap for me. I expected to fall on my face, fail, and just burn. And turned out I didn't. And then I went to work took the next job, which was like national responsibility. Same thing, totally expected to fail and burn, and I didn't. But through that path, I got to see, like, it doesn't matter socioeconomic status, education, type, like how much revenue you're managing, if it's just you, solo operation, or you're managing a couple $1 billion worth of backlog, the problems that businesses and people face are the same. And and what I've chosen to really, really focus on is helping people humanize the work, optimize the execution of the work, and scale those improvements. And if you can't tell, it's totally people. I take a totally people-centered focus, and I'm really best designed to help people-centered leaders. And now I have, all kinds of stuff. I'm all over the place, and I'm just having fun trying to serve as much as I possibly can.
Oh, I love the trying to serve, because you also, what Jesse didn't hint at is he's got in the goofballness, because we're going to get into like data-driven meeting goofball and all that. But in the goofballness, you have a profound insight into like emotional intelligence, right? And really understanding people, that lends itself well to people-centered operations. And so part of what you do is you have this emotional bungee jumpers. And I remember you've set challenges for these participants where they have to go then, I don't know, to like an employee or a team member or something. You can break this down for me, but they have to say, how can I serve you today? And people had issues with that word serve. Give me some insights there.
Yeah, so you nailed it. With the emotional bungee jumpers, we meet once a month, and there's always a challenge. And the challenge is designed for them to operate differently and have more relational interactions than transactional interactions. And one of those challenges was specifically ask at least 3 people, personal, professional, doesn't matter. Ask at least 3 people, how can I better serve you? And then, of course, the group was like, do we have to use those words? I'm like, yes, that's the assignment. And so the interesting thing, like the idea is, it was a question, I was complaining. It was a question that I started using. I was complaining about the feedback that I would get, right? Like, hey, what feedback do you have for me? And what would I get? Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing good. I like it. It's awesome. And so I'm like, I'm not happy with the feedback, but I'm the one that's asking for it. So maybe it's the way I'm asking for it. And so I said, what if I said, how can I better serve you? And when I started doing that, it was really uncomfortable, right? Not really for me, but it was a little like, ooh, this is kind of weird. But it stopped people in their tracks. They're like, man, I don't really know. Or some people are like, I don't think we're like that close, Jess. I'm like, oh,
back off, man. Like, what you doing?
But it gave me like really actionable insight. And so it was something that I incorporated into like my feedback loops. And when we presented to the group to like ask this question, people came back. They're like, "Well, I got feed, but I didn't ask it the way you said." I'm like, "Awesome. Why not?" Right? Because that's the other part of the monthly challenges is to help people discover stuff about themselves. And so there were a handful of people that said, "I didn't ask, how can I better serve you?" It's like, good. Why not? What was it about that arrangement of words that gave you pause? And so, those conversations were really meaningful. But back to like maybe the emotional intelligence, I think emotional intelligence is a lot of maybe the golden side of self-awareness, which is self-awareness isn't just me being aware of me. It's also being aware of how people receive me. And so that question was like, I remember somebody, they were kind of like, well, I just felt like it made me feel less than to ask it that way. And I was not okay with that. Like, oh, awesome. Right. And that opens up a whole conversation of why not? So that we're aware of ourselves and what funky things that we have to just examine our thinking around it. And that was the whole purpose. Like, it wasn't to like get the perfect answer. It was to discover something about yourself and connect with people to a deeper degree.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to be looked at as less than, which is so interesting because a lot of people would say, "Oh, I love helping others. I'm just here to support." And it's like, in that way, you should be taking a servant mentality, right? So why are we hung up on the word serve? Actually, I have a quick cast coming out next week. It's about why your open door policy sucks, right? It's like, and I agree with like the idea of like, okay, what feedback do you have? Or like, how can I help you today? What can I do for you today? And people are still just like, no, I'm all good. Like, things are great. But then if I specifically say like, I want to meet with you on this, like bring XYZ questions, we're going to go over it. Then people are like all into it. Right.
Yes.
Okay. So you do a lot of different things, which leaves a lot of different opportunities for you to be like, what is going on? And to lose your sanity in business. So I want to understand like, what is one of those moments where, because overall, if people are like comparing themselves on social media, which you shouldn't do, but we all do, if
Yes.
people are stalking you, they're like, Jesse's got it going on. You look like you're everywhere. Everything's running smoothly. You're just like living your best life right now. So let's give us a chance to be like, oh, he humble, and like, where have you lost your sanity?
Where I think that I'll say where I get tangled up the most, it's not in like the business stuff and like delivering services to clients. It's not even necessarily on attracting amazing clients. I've been extremely fortunate in that I've had a string of just amazing clientele to serve with amazing people. It's when I start trying to when I start thinking about scaling, and of course, right, the way I approach it is, okay, I'm going to watch YouTube and focus on a particular thing and just consume the hell out of that content. And a lot of what they say, and it's proof, like it works. Their followership, their businesses, whatever, are evidence that strategy works. But it gets me tangled up. And it's like, oh, I'm doing it wrong, or I need to have a CTA, and I need to call out the problem, and I need to call out my ideal customer profile, and like all this crap, which, don't get me wrong, it is extremely important. But I get tangled up in thinking that I'm doing it wrong because I haven't done it that way. But I also have some evidence that says I'm not doing it totally wrong. Right? If I'm serving the type of clients that I love and they get like actual value from the engagements that we're on, I'm not doing it wrong. I'm just not doing it their way. And so, and I know a bunch of people that kind of like, well, I want to add a service, or I'm thinking about things, I want to expand it, but it doesn't really align to the language in the middle. It's like, yeah, like I get there too. And then for me, it's like, okay, so what? Like, worst case scenario is they don't buy it, or they don't want to hear from me. They don't want to talk to me. And I'm okay with it. Like, I will survive. And so I think the way I overcome that, getting wrapped around the axle about what my ideal client is and what the messaging is and like all of that stuff, is screw it. Just do something that feels right. And if it works, do more of it. If it doesn't work, switch it up. Like, again, I guess maybe in summary is I'm clicking along and I'm doing amazing, right? Like in terms of being able to start this with like, I mean, I got to celebrate, right?
Yeah.
Like,
No, you are.
I don't have any degrees. I started the business, and the way my business plan was this: I was going to quit my job. I did, and then I'm going to learn how to like do business, and that's what I did. And so it's been phenomenal. Now, so I have evidence that it's working. Integrating some of these other tactics, if you will, is just that. How can I integrate them? And it doesn't matter how much analysis I do of them. The proof is in the execution. And so when I do it and it produces a result, then I keep doing it. And if it doesn't produce the result I want, then I'll change it up and try a different path. That's my style.
It's simple. Yeah. So there's a few things I want to break down on that. So let me go back to one of the first things you said. Like your whole thing is like, let me just consume content and figure whatever, and just kind of overloaded information and see what works for you. And something interesting you said there is that, those thought leaders or those strategists, they're typically promoting a strategy that has just worked for them, right? And what I think is then missing for people is then the context of what that person was selling, who they were selling to, what their failures prior to discovering that strategy would be. So for our listeners, to give them a little bit more context into your stuff, like, yeah, you do all these things and you kind of have your own squirrel cages and you have where you can play around in the omniverse, but you also have long-term clients, or at least like, okay, that this project is going to be bringing in revenue for X amount of time, right?
Correct.
Like, so like, what's your average maybe term or length working with those project clients?
Yeah. So long-term, I'm going to call them long-term. They're not really long-term. I've had one that was like 2 years, which was amazing. I've got another one that's getting over a year now. And so when I average it, we're looking at 6 to 8 months, right, of engagement, whatever that is, in person, virtual, whatever it is, for what I'll call my corporate clients, like the corporate business that I do, which is the consulting, coaching, et cetera. Those usually run 6 to 8 months. And here's one thing that I did do strategically that I heard from one of the gurus, right, the thought leaders, was I leveraged my pricing to filter out clients that I'm not really designed to serve. And so which ones are those? It's people that want a pep rally, like folks that want me to come in and do a 1-day lean training and like leanify everybody in a 6-7 hour workshop. That's not going to happen, right? I know I'm going to entertain them. And two, I am going to give them something, get them excited and give them some things to think about. But in terms of actually impacting the business or causing any change, we're like 5% likelihood that happens. And so what ends up happening? The person that asked me to come and do the thing gets disappointed and says, freaking consultants don't work. Jesse sucks. We spent this much money on him, right? But it was a pep rally. And so what I did was I jacked up the price. That sounds ugly, but it's what I did for those pep rally. Like, if you want a 1-day thing, this is the cost. I'm like, well, what all do I get? I was like, well, this is what you get. Like, that's all. Like, yes. And then real quickly they say, okay, no, that's outside of my budget. Good. But then they're like, ooh, well, I'm like, well, here's why. Like, what I recommend instead of the 1-day pep rally is some sort of follow-up and support to reinforce whatever we dive into during the pep rally, right? We got to have some support and follow-up. And it's a tricky thing as a consultant because it's easy for the buyer or the prospect to think that I'm just trying to sell them more services. And so I'm not. I'm trying to help them reach their intended outcome. And I know a 1-day session is not going to do that. And so, like I said, I raised the price up, and it's helped people just say, hell no, Jay, people pay you that? Like, yeah, they do. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, I agree. And like, cool, like, no problem here. And so that ended and kind of accidentally started translated into longer term engagements. So that's my primary source of revenue is corporate clients. I also do one-on-one coaching, which is something that's just starting to bubble up, which wasn't necessarily something, well, it isn't anything that I market, but it's starting to bubble up. I love that, right? Because that's the whole thing. And then, I have the online stuff. And so it's the online, like the strategies don't apply to every business. A lot of those strategies that I'm tinkering with are specifically for building online services, online business. And that's where I'm having the hardest time, but it's okay because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm learning those things, and those tactics and strategies help me there. In terms of the consulting, I think what my approach to it, I haven't heard it on any YouTube video, but it freaking works for me. And so I just keep doing that, which gives me the runway to tinker around and figure out this other online stuff. I don't know. I went all over the place.
No, I love it. It was so smart also. There's like, we'll just kind of keep going down into the spider web of Jesse land. But I mean, it's so smart. You have at least your baseline, and then we can play around without losing the messaging that attracts our kind of baseline clients. And going back to like, what have you heard on YouTube? On top of that, anytime I have taken a strategy verbatim, it has never worked. Like you have to take a strategy in context of your business and then play around with it for how it's going to work. And I would also argue a lot of strategies out there for online businesses are strategies for online businesses that market to other online businesses.
Yes.
And so I also fall into that trap of like, well, I'm remote, I'm digital, I can travel, whatever, but my customer is not an online business. So like a lot of these you have to kind of plug and play with like this strategy plus like maybe some traditional marketing stuff and put them together. Now on pricing, we jacked up the pricing so that people could be like, no, don't want that, or like, sure, I guess, or no, like, let's get this long-term thing. A lot of people, I think, also struggle with, well, if I jack it up, people are going to say no, people are going to leave, and then like, where's my money? So how did you really contend with that feeling and have the confidence to just like say, this is what the price is?
Yeah. So the first thing that is really important to say, because I know that I've been extremely fortunate, I don't have any dependents. I don't have any people, plants, or pets that require me to like do anything. So I can take bigger risks. I can obsess and spend more time on this business thing. Like, I got to say that because I've had conversations like, well, you just do so much. Like, yeah, but I also don't have a pet or a person to like, I'm going to say distract me, but maybe I should say to enjoy companionship from, whatever. Like, I don't have that situation, which means I can take bigger risk, bottom line. Now, in terms of the what if they say no? Again, I was very fortunate. What started happening when I started my business, I started with a number, a dollar figure that I used and multiplied that against what I thought or what I estimated the engagement was going to require, right? Like in terms of contact time, not all the front end and back end follow-up stuff, just the contact time. And I expected that dollar number for that to help people say no. What was happening is they were all saying yes. And I'm like, cool, man. And what it did was it created this situation where my calendar was getting too full, meaning I was less available for the random check-in call or follow-up or just, hey man, we started this. I'm getting a little bit of problem. Like because I had so much booked time, I wasn't able. It's like, oh, I'll call you on Friday or I'll call you this evening. And that's not what I wanted. Like, it was impacting the quality of service that I wanted to provide. And so then the math was, okay, well, I need to, like, how do I say no without saying no? So then I started tinkering around with this tiered pricing, meaning if I got X amount of hours booked on the month, between this the zero and whatever the first threshold was, it was this factor that I would use. And once I hit that in terms of booked time, I went up to tier 2 pricing that went from whatever to whatever. And once I hit that, I went up to tier 3 pricing. And what that helped me do was tell clients. So it gave me kind of an experiment to see, it wasn't like I just said, I'm raising my price. It was like, yeah, let me systematically figure this out. And the deal was this, like, okay, if you want to do that this month and I already have X amount of hours booked, this will be the rate. But if you can wait until next month or until my calendar has less booked time, it'll be at this rate. And guess what they said at tier 2 pricing? They said, let's start. Like, damn it. Okay, awesome. Let's go. And so that cycle continued for like 2.5, almost 3 months. And I finally got to the third tier pricing. Now my calendar was still littered with a couple of these pep rallies, which again was not like, it was irritating. And then I said, well, no one has said no. This is what I'm going to do and I have a booked calendar that at this point I've got 6-9 at that point in time. I think I had like 16 months booked, right? Which was amazing. So I said, okay, I'm going to do this for the pep rallies, and I'm raising the bottom figure to this because no one has said no. And that's how I got there. Like, it wasn't just a decision overnight. It was kind of the tiered pricing so that it could reinforce my ability to serve in the manner I want to serve, and also not like freaking poke people's eyes out and try to take all their money. And at the same, then it was like, okay, now how do I get this other pep rally stuff off the books? Because I know that I'm really not serving them the way I should when they say yes to the pep rally. And so again, it goes back to like the idea of service. I could have kept it low and I could have had 60 pep rallies a month and I would have made a lot of money, but I wouldn't have been contributing. I mean, marginal contribution to the people in the room and to those companies that would have acquired my services.
Oh, well, yeah. And then like our sanity moment at this point would be more of like how you're overworked, exhausted, and resenting the business, right?
Yes.
And like people aren't happy. Now, Jennifer, first off, she said there's so much star power on this screen. So thanks, Jennifer, for joining us. And she loves the tiered approach, the supply and demand. And so what I also appreciate about this is that you said earlier, like you can't learn without the execution of it, right? And so you're like, I'm just going to go do the thing, which is also something Miss Jen said on our last week's live, right? Just go do the thing and like, let's experiment and then assess. And so
Yes.
Is that something that was like, that's just part of your personality? You learned this as a manager? Was this part of like your business YouTubing education? Like, where did this go have fun, but like still keep it business approach come from?
Yeah, I'm going to say the go have fun, like we'll say it nicely, right? The adventurous nature that I have, that's a thing since I was a kid, right? Like I learned early on, I love attention, good attention, bad attention. I don't care. Just give me attention. And the consequence of like bad behavior was marginal. Like, what? I'm going to get the attention. You're going to call my mom. Like, big deal. I got my attention. And so I think at a very young age, I learned that the worst thing that's going to happen is not as bad as what I think it could be. Right. And I learned that there are consequences and you just have to be prepared to deal with the consequence. Right. Like there was a limit and I'll give you an example, like when I was in middle school and then getting into high school, my limit of pushing the edge was, will it get to my baseball coach? Will it get to my coaches? Because if my coaches find out, that's not okay. Like that is the ultimate consequence. So I would push and I knew what the limit was. Now I wasn't like thinking of it that way. I understand that now in reflection. And so that kind of, how do I say, maybe the callous or the comfort of knowing that, not following the rules ain't the end of the world. Like, okay, maybe I'll get a C, but so what? You know what? Like for real, when I'm signing a 6-figure deal with the client, none of them have ever asked me what my GPA was in high school, right? Like nobody gives a crap about that. Can I serve them? Yes or no? So anyways, fast forward to, my career. It took me a little longer to really flex that. I'll just say it's like nonconformity, almost rebellious. Of like, this stuff ain't working. We got to do it differently. I don't like the results I'm getting. I'm going to push. And as I matured, once I got to like foreman, superintendent, I started getting more confidence in it, because what was the consequence? You're going to fire me? I'll find a job on the way home. Right. And then when I started sitting in bigger tables with more important people, same thing. Everybody's sitting around being bobbleheads. Yeah, yeah, boss. Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm like, this is stupid. Why are we doing this? And the response, yeah, sure, I pissed some people off, but a lot of people said, thank you for saying that. We've been wanting to say that. Or they said, man, that perspective, I didn't even consider it. Thank you for bringing it. I was like, oh. So there, again, there was consequences, there was pros and cons. So I built my career on pushing and challenging, but also knowing like what's the limit, right? What is at risk? Am I going to lose favor with somebody? Yes. What's the possible return? Impact. Okay. If you're going to be mad at me for a little bit, I'm willing to sacrifice that to have greater impact on the people here. And so I think I have just cycles now. That's kind of the really nice fluffy stuff, right? But in my life, like I've had a lot of legal problems. I've been arrested. I'm a two-time felon, right? I've been arrested. I've dealt with addiction, substance abuse, and all kinds of just maladjusted behavior. Then guess what? All of those things too, none of them were good. It was very selfish. But look at me, I'm here. Like it didn't end my life, right? It didn't keep me stuck where I was at the time. And so I'll give you a funny example. The very first coach I got when I was starting my business, she was helping me write my book and start the website, like just all the stuff I didn't know how to do. When we were talking about the deal, she says, Jesse, like, here's the price. And it was the biggest number that I've ever paid, except for my lawyers, right? And I said, man, and she said, what do you think? And I said, well, it's cheaper than a DWI, right? And so like it sounds silly, but I mean it seriously. Mm-hmm. I've spent over 6 figures on court fees, attorney fees, and all the other things to stay out of prison, which was, I mean, it was a pretty good investment, right? I'm so pretty. It wouldn't be good if I was in prison. But I know how hard and scary that life was. Mm-hmm. So these things of like, you know, overcharging or testing limits or experimenting, I'm not going to waste months worrying about what are the things I want to learn if I'm locked up for 2 to 10 years, because I know that reality. It's not as bad as growing up and not having, like, eating bologna and papas for weeks because that's all we can eat. Like that's all mom could afford at the time. It's not that bad. So the negative outcome of the idea or being told no or not getting clients is like, okay, well, I'll turn the AC off and put the box fan on the window. I've been there. It's not that big a deal. So it's really that. It's like, how bad could it get? It's really not that bad. I have the resources and I am resourceful enough to navigate through any cratering of an idea or like lack of return on an investment.
Yeah, which I think I'm discovering a new theme of our conversation here, which is again context and perspective, right? You're assessing the risk of something based on the context of your life. How bad can I get? Like I've struggled before, like I know the struggle bus, or I've been to jail. We don't want to end up in prison for a decade, but like we've had some kind of rock bottom moments, if we're going to be blunt about it. And so, are you assessing the context and like the risk of something? Like for me, I'm like, okay, lights got to be on. We got little kids, you know, but if I experiment and something goes wrong, cool, husband still has a good job. Or it was a really bad day, today sucked, but my kid wanted to say grace and prayers before dinner and like did awesome. Cool. Okay. So like, what's the context of what's happening in my life? So yes. We've got some great engagement happening in the chat. So I want to highlight a few things. So we went back to pricing. And again, yes. you're looking at the risk of pricing and someone possibly saying no, knowing that like you have other friends that want to buy your shit anyway, right? So yes. Joseph was saying figuring out pricing has been a struggle for me too. What worked when it was just me didn't make sense when I started adding people to my team, right? So yeah, yes. You got to look at how is it going to scale? And Jesse, I'll do a little shameless plug here, since he's given us such great reviews. Jesse has a virtual assistant from our team. Yes. So does Joseph, guys. So if you're looking to expand your team, come chat with me. But that also then is like, oh, that's a new line item on our budget. That's something else that we gotta deal with. And when Kayla, your assistant, started, she didn't necessarily start with revenue generating tasks.
Right.
So going back to pricing, we're several months in now of you working with an assistant. What was that like for you? Of like, we're gonna pitch new things, and I've got this other kind of hefty, not hefty, but like new line item.
Yeah, no, beautiful question, because and it's like, folks, if you want evidence of how amazing an assistant can be, is I do a lot of crap, right? Like I do a lot of stuff, and everything keeps clicking along. The only reason it continues to click along is because of Kayla's, because of services that I've acquired through you, Samantha, like for real. So no, I was wrestling with that for a little bit. It's like, well, if I get an assistant, I want to make sure that they're going to be focused on revenue generating activities because I need to have an ROI. And I'm like, oh man, that's a pain in the ass. I said, no, dummy. The podcast that I've had for over 4 years, which is kind of where this, like the seed of me starting a business sprouted from, I need to keep that going. And that takes a lot of time, right? Like the editing and like just all of it. I said, well, what if I give that to her? Because then I can focus my energy. Then I can focus on the revenue generating stuff, right? Like, oh, duh. And so I did that. And, I've been extremely fortunate. I've had a lot of business, and financially, there was really no reason for me not to have an assistant. And so I was at a point, what was happening is I was at a point where the release of the podcast episode started getting more and more spotty. Like for a while there, I was doing I started off once every other week. Then I was like every week. And then it was like maybe once a month, maybe like it just kind of depended on how busy I was. And so I didn't like that. I'm interviewing people, amazing people that I want to introduce to the world. But I can't because I don't have time to edit and, do the things. I said, hell man, let's do that. And so it was like, and I have enough money to do that, right? I didn't have to raise my prices to accommodate. I just needed to make the investment, because what's the worst that can happen? It sucks. And I mean, I spent thousands of dollars in a bar in one night, like for real context.
Questionable choices.
Right? Like I spent money on less things, on lesser things. And so that's kind of my go-to check. Like, all right, when I'm being, like, I don't know, but like, Jesse, you spent more on crap, right? And so that helps me get over it real quick. But it's helped that, and which has then given me the bandwidth or thinking time, because that's what I'm always optimizing for, is like, okay, now let me look at all this other stuff. Now that I don't have to have that pressure. And that was the greatest thing. Like if I had to summarize what I've gotten from your services and from Kayla's services, it would be relief. Because I don't have to negotiate with myself anymore about, am I going to work out? Am I going to go to bed 2 hours late? Am I going to schedule this flight kind of differently so that I can do the podcast, so that I can do the editing, so I could do the thumbnail? I don't have to do that. It's like, it's handled. And which gives, so now I have less pressure. My focus fuel, I can direct it at really important, long-term, high leverage things. It's not being diluted with these other things that have to be done, but I don't necessarily have to be doing them. So it's been powerful. But again, back to like, does that concern me? I feel responsible. It's like, yeah, Jess, you better keep hustling. Rather, you better keep serving and start serving better, because if you want to keep these people, because she's amazing, right? Renee does all the video editing and stuff. I just acquired another service with Adeptimize for like to really focus on the back engine stuff like SEO and ads and all of that stuff, which is a lot of work. I loved it, but I'm like, okay, I love it enough. I understand it enough, and I know I don't want to do it anymore. And so it's like, yes, I want to continue these services. So I need to serve better, not charge more. I need to serve better, which will increase the volume of revenue that I have coming in, increase the demand, like Jen stated earlier, so that I can continue to grow this thing, whatever this thing is.
Now, something I don't want people to miss here, because I know that we've repeated the word serving, But I also want people to pick up that you're not just saying these words. This is really like part of who you are. And so if you don't have, as a business owner, if you don't have like your lighthouse of core values, it's going to be really hard to achieve the amazingness and like success that Jesse is at now. Because even going back to what you said about your podcast, it wasn't like, oh, I've got this content I need to share so I can have like this digital footprint, whatever, which is, you know, an ROI from your content. But you specifically said, I'm interviewing these amazing people and I want to introduce them to the world. And so it's that servant mindset that is like trickled in everything that Jesse does, which I think is so impressive to kind of watch and experience and be a part of. Now, if we dig a little bit more into some of the context of risk and stuff, Jennifer also had a question of how much of your approach around status quo has changed since you went out on your own. And so remind us, we started the podcast 4 years ago, how many years you are in business. So remind us that when you answer this question.
Yeah. So I've been in business just over 3.5 years now. April, May, June, July, August. Well, no, 3 years and 4 months. The podcast started, man, I probably had the podcast. I started the podcast during COVID. So whatever that, I think that maybe 5 years, right?
5 years, yeah.
Right. So in terms of like my approach around status quo since going out on my own, there's two big things. One is kind of like, damn it, I could have done better. And I'll start with that. What I've learned about business, about marketing, about business development, about the value of relationships, and the idea of value in business context, not lean context. Man, if I knew this, like right now, I would be a freaking amazing employee for somebody because of my understanding of all the things. And looking back, even though I think most of the people that have ever worked with me will agree that I'm a nonconformist, that I'm kind of radical, kind of change agent, and that's been my nature. And that also comes from some like traumatic things that I experienced as a kid, that I cannot leave things alone. I can't let things set. But anyway, that's a different story. So the one nugget is like, man, I could have been better in terms of challenging the status quo. Not that I didn't, but I could have done it more effectively, right? And I've learned that through starting my business. Now, in terms of like, how much of my approach around status quo has changed since I went on my own? It's helped me understand the value of being ultra clear about what my stance is, which is, I would say, challenges the status quo. Because, and I'll give one simple example. Yes, I'm a lean freak, right? I'm a lean construction zealot. But I have decided, I came to terms with the fact, or discovered, that using all the words and definitions and tools to, here we go again, to serve people, to make their day better, is the answer. It is the way. How can I use all of this to develop their problem solving skills and to make the work better for them? When I do that, massive sustainable change happens. What I'll say the status quo is using all the frameworks and lingo and definitions and tools and processes to optimize an operation, which is weak sauce, right? And so when I say these kinds of things, it ruffles some feathers, but what's the worst thing that's going to happen? The optimizers, the over optimizers that have very little appreciation or even awareness that they're not serving the human beings, they're going to say, I'm full of it. Good, because we won't work good together. And it helps the people that are interested, or rather I'll say it this way, it helps the people that know we can't do it the way we've been doing it anymore. We're going to have to systematically demonstrate appreciation for the people on our job, in our charge. But how the hell do I do it? I can help them with that. And it's clear that when we work together, we are taking a human-centered approach. Sure, KPIs and all of that stuff, but that's the outcome. The strategy is humanizing the damn thing, because that sticks, that lasts. And so anyways, back to the status quo thing, I've learned that, or maybe something people can latch onto, is if you're running your own thing, your own operation, or you're leading a team, or just use an individual in the job that you have, all the time or energy that is focused on like being approved and being liked and not making waves, right? That is misplaced energy. I know how uncomfortable it is, but the massive impact of you as an individual, your life experiences, your ability to contribute comes from challenging, not, and I wouldn't say it in terms of challenging the status quo. It comes from contributing your real experience, your straight up, honest, observation of how the world functions and how things are happening around you. Like you got to say it, but we don't, right? We say, well, right? Like I want to, the world, all of that. So I don't know. That was a long answer, but that's kind of how I think about it now. Or I have more proof.
Yeah, no, I like that because I approach things the same way, right? Like I'm going to challenge you, but people don't think I'm going to cut deep because I smile a lot, and then I'm like, well, here we go, because we're going to go right for the jugular here. But I also appreciate what you said about, like, let's not worry about being liked. Like, let's just and that goes for like all contexts of business. Like, just show up how you want to show up. And I remember when we met each other in person for the first time in Sedona, I was like, I'm just going to treat this weekend like it's a weekend with friends, and I'm just going to show up. And if people think I'm obnoxious, like, well, just don't work with me. It's fine. And then I got so many compliments, or people thought I was like so fun. I'm like, cool. Like, we're just going to keep going like this. And then you have, the Josh Lupkers of the world. It's like, Sam's a corporate, boring person. And now I'm like, F you, I show up with Star Wars Hawaiian shirts, Josh. Right. In the early part of what you said there, you also said, like, if you'd be an amazing employee because you understand all these things now about business. And I find that interesting. We're going to go a little bit kind of curveball here, because in the world of lean and in the world of improving stuff, having employees understand the why and the big picture is super, super important, right? So that's kind of already a part of your everyday world. It was part of your work before you went out on as a business owner. So I'm curious, in all of your initial YouTubing and like, how do I be a business owner? Was there any, like, what were the stuff about like big picture that you didn't realize you kind of had to think of?
Well, I'll keep it easy. Having a business plan, or more specifically, having a business development plan. Like I had none. I swear, I was sitting down, I was having lunch with one of my former bosses, and he's like, man, there's no doubt you're one of those guys. It was clear that you were going to be starting your own thing. I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner. Like, yeah, oh, awesome, thanks. And he's like, okay, so what's your business development plan? And I said, what's that? All right. I had no idea. Like, what do you mean? Like, oh, I got to think about that. So that was like, it's kind of silly, but I had no idea. Now, big picture, I think what I wish I knew earlier was that there is a difference between branding, marketing, advertising, and messaging. I didn't know that. And I'm sure there are more differences, but had I known sooner, I would have spent way more time thinking about messaging before all the other crap. And that's a big picture thing. And again, the way I'm kind of figuring it out is just by doing it and trying it and tinkering with it and experimenting with it. Had I known that earlier, I would have started specifically with messaging and like experimented, and then let that be the foundation for the advertising, for the marketing, and for the branding. And I guess maybe another way to say that is you can do those things on purpose, and I would have had faster cohesion had I thought about them as different buckets.
So let me just kind of bring that down to the practical for some people. What I'm really hearing there is it's okay to experiment. We still can have fun with our content and whatever the business development strategy might be, but we've got to come back to clarity on who are we serving and why are we serving them. And then we can experiment with what messaging resonates best with those people, but we've got to come back to that core. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's close. Because it's not necessarily who am I serving. And I know this is a Jesseism, so actually don't write this down.
Hands up.
Right. For me, when I think about messaging, isn't necessarily who I'm serving, because I don't know why, I have a hang up about who the client is. Where I'm at with it is, what is the impact I want to have? What is not, I mean, in some generic terms, is like, what is the value I want to provide? But it's really, what is the impact I want to have? And how do I integrate that into, all the stuff, right? The podcast and the social post and all the other junk. That's how I think about messaging. What is the impact I want to have? Because once I understand, when I get clear about that, the who is easy. All I got to do is say directors, right? Managers, parents, stressed out overachievers, like, this is the impact I have, and I can call out who those people are. Now I'll also deviate from that a little bit, having an understanding of the clients that I love to serve. Like, what are the characteristics that they have that create a mutual beneficial experience? And this is super selfish, but I just discovered this with Field Verified, my brother Brian Melcher out there. We did an engagement. We did the emotional bungee jumpers, but the corporate one, which is communication capabilities, with their crew. And he was like, hey, man, and Baker Triangle, who I'm working with right now, same thing. They're like, hey, we have a full-time media person that does video and on pics and the whole thing. Are you okay with us recording? I'm like, absolutely, right? Like, that brings me some tremendous value. And so now it's like one of those criteria. And so maybe I'll think about it in terms of not necessarily who do I want to serve, but what are those little criteria that they have that say, man, we gotta figure something out, because we can start a bigger fire together. Which again, that's total Jesseism. Like I don't recommend it, because it takes a little bit of guts.
No, but it goes back to, you opened up this whole interview with, I'm doing amazing. And it's like, proof is in the pudding. He is doing amazing. That's super awesome. Now, I know we're coming up on time for you. So I got two more things. One big question, to kind of wrap things up, of you have this very, like, go have fun, then review, figure out what's gonna work for you, right? Like, okay, that's how we got the tiered pricing. That's how we got, like, these different services. Is there a rhythm to that? Is there, like, okay, we're gonna do this thing, and then a few weeks from now on this date, I'm going to review it? Or it's just like, I know when I start to feel this way, I review. Like, what is your habit there to still say I can have fun, but like, here's the data behind it?
Yes. Oh, I love that. That's a really important question. Yes, there are limits. There are bookends to everything that again, people are going to think that I'm like a serious guy. So I hope this starts breaking up with the internet. Yes, there are bookends to everything that I do. And they are different. So, for example, when I started the podcast, I said, okay, it was a question. Am I willing to post an episode twice a month for a whole year with 0 downloads? If I'm not willing to do that, then I don't need to jack around with it. At the end of the year, I'll evaluate. And so I did it. Why? Because that was not, there was no dollars associated with, except for me buying gear and my time. But as hell, I wasn't doing anything anyways, right? And so I gave that a year, and then I evaluated and said, okay, I love this. This is awesome. I'm just going to keep doing it. Now, when when there's dollars associated with it, I'm learning, and this is kind of figured this one out through running ads. It's like, okay, I'm going to spend, how much do I want to spend per week, per month, and how long am I going to run it before I decide to kill it or keep going? And so it's never like I'm going to start it to stop it. I'm going to start it to evaluate. Do I step on the gas? Do I pump the brakes? How do I adjust that? And so the bigger the dollars associated with the thing, the smaller the time frame is to make that decision. Now, that being said, I don't think I test any idea for less than 30 days. It's kind of like a bond. Like if I'm not willing to like go through the pain and the friction and the fear and all of that for at least a month, why waste the time? Because a week is not enough time. And so it kind of ranges from a month to, a year or two or whatever it is. Does that help?
Yeah, I'm thinking of my like recent ChatGPT conversation where I'm like talking about skincare, and it's like, it's been a week, Samantha. Give it time. I'm like,
That's it.
oh yeah, all right, cool.
Yes.
Okay, so one more thing. This is more of an announcement than a question for Jesse. We're so excited to announce this. Jesse and I are finally pairing up for a collaboration. We're running a workshop on September 16th. I almost said the 12th, but September 16th. So a little over a month from now, all about people-centered operations for managers. So I'm going to drop this in the comments. For some reason, I can't post to LinkedIn, so I'll comment that later.
Yeah.
But if you're interested in learning, okay, how exactly does Jesse do this? How do we like have people-centered approaches while still getting shit done? And maybe with some of the magical sprinkles that Sam might bring to the mix, then I heavily encourage you to come sign up. And since this is our first one, we're doing it for free and we're capping it at 20, right, Jesse?
20 people. 20 people. Yes,
All right.
ma'am.
So if you want to slide in for free, just 20 people allowed here. Go ahead and register now, because once we do this again and we figure out all our little kinks, not kinks, oh, the feet picks. Once we figure out all the little mistakes, it's going to be a paid workshop. So I'll drop that link for you guys so you can register, and we'll see you then. Thanks so much for joining us today, Jesse.
Thank you. We'll see you.